And what is going on, everybody? How are you doing? Welcome to Audio. I am your host, Andrew Turner, and joined with me is my co-host and battle buddy, Mr. Matthew Gardner. Today is July 22nd, 2022, Military Buddy Check-In. How the hell is everybody doing?
I think we're doing better than you, pal. You sound like you're hurting a little bit, right?
Yeah, I came down with the vid, my friend. So
it's no excuse. We don't want to hear it. Hey, listen, pal. Before the show, this is exactly what you should have done, and if you didn't, I'm gonna be pissed. Change your socks, drink some water, and took some Motrin. If that didn't happen, then I don't want to hear a complaint out of you. All right?
I'm not wearing socks. I drank water, and I did not take any Motrin.
Okay. Well, there you go.
Fair.
Motrin helps and water helps. So.
And actually, I did take. I took vitamin D. I took some. What was the zinc and Sudafed and Tylenol. That was the remedy I had tonight. So.
I think the key with zinc is you have to take it when you're starting to feel the onsets. So I don't think it's doing anything. You have COVID now, so I don't think the zinc is doing anything. I think you might as well just go ahead and cancel that one out.
Yeah, well, that is what it is. Well, listen, man, why don't you get into what's going on tonight? Let everybody know what's on our agenda.
Yeah, exactly. Well, hey, listen. First, like Andrew said, today's the 22nd day of this month, and for those of you who aren't involved in the military community or don't have a veteran or something around those lines, the 22nd of every month represents something very sacred and special to those of us who are in the veteran community and those of us who love or cherish a veteran. Okay, it's the number that represents 22 a day, the number of veterans that commit suicide. And so we take this time every month and we remember them, and we remember that we still have work to do and we still need to take care of our veterans. I am happy to report that a new report came out in 2021 with suicide rates, according to the VA, is down to 17. So 17 is still way too many, right? We got to do better. We got to do better with our vets, and that's, I won't get on my soapbox about that, but we got to do better. So that's what the 22nd represents every month for us. So.
Awesome. Well, in that regard, bud, how are you? How's everything going? I know normally it's on a Friday. It's okay. Well, work sucked. I got through the week, and here we are. We're happy for the weekend. Is there anything else you can report on, man?
I mean, it's good, man. Life's good right now. I can't complain. The week was okay. I got off a little early today, like I do on Fridays. I have my daughter. The dogs are fed, the dogs are put out. So everything's good, man. So better than last week. Things went smooth this week with materials. No major fires. One kind of small one was put out by Wednesday, Thursday time frame. So I went into today without having to really worry about anything. So
good. Well, I'm happy to hear it, man. You obviously know with me, past couple days, just fighting this incy cold that we have. Incy cold, itty bitty, tiny. Little COVID. I'm not giving it.
I can't tell. You look horrible.
Oh, I appreciate that. But also, I'm excited for tonight's guests. We are going to be having First Sergeant Aubrey Wrenn on tonight. Matt, you got a little bit more background on that?
Yeah. So, if for those of you who follow our social media or follow Aubrey Wrenn social media, we've been talking about this for well over a week now. We are blessed enough to have First Sergeant Aubrey Wrenn on, seasoned Marine leader, senior staff NCO, and he's going to come on. He's going to talk to us. We're going to do a 2-part interview because we believe what he has to say is story as well as what fits in with what we talk about here at Disarrange with our FRC program and transitioning and difficulties. He is right in the middle of his transition out of the Marine Corps. So we get a rare look at the difficulties behind that, especially with somebody that's been in that long. So tonight we're gonna be listening fully to him talk about his story. I can't wait. And mean, why waste any more time?
Right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, Mr. First Sergeant Aubrey Wrenn, everybody.
What's going on, everybody?
Hey,
what's going on, Aubrey? How are you, sir?
Good. How are you?
We're doing very, very well. Man, look, you cleaned up nice out of the camis, man.
Hey, I appreciate it. Thank you. I try, right? I try.
Well, no, we appreciate your time, and I think we did some good due diligence this week setting it up. So if we could just hop right into it and maybe start right from the beginning, Aubrey, kind of give us a little bit about who you are, where you come from, and ultimately, what kind of led you to joining the Marine Corps.
Yeah. So first, I want to start off by saying thanks. This is an honor and a privilege. I appreciate you guys giving me the opportunity to come on here and share my story, share my experiences, talk about some of the things that can help you all's listeners as well as your mission with F4C. So I'm proud to be here. About me, I came in the Marine Corps January 2001. I've been in for almost 22 years now. It seems like not that long, but it feels like it's been just a blink of an eye. So grew up in a place called Danville, Virginia. It's right on the North Carolina-Virginia border. It's right in the middle of the state of Virginia. I was born in Newport News, but that's where I grew up. Come from very, I guess you would say, humble beginnings. Definitely had to earn my way through a lot of growing up, the oldest of three. So, but yeah, been doing the Marine Corps thing for a while now, and initially I was an artilleryman, a cannoneer. I did that for about 16 years, and then got selected for First Sergeant, and I've been doing that since 2017. So it's been an interesting trip, interesting ride for sure. Definitely a lot of learning, a lot of development, a lot of growing. So it's been a trip. I'm now I'm in Jacksonville, North Carolina right now. My wife's a Marine, Ashley. She's a gunny. She works over at Camp Johnson, the logistics schoolhouse. So she's still getting after it, right? So we're going to be doing the Marine Corps thing for a while, but now I get to be a dependent here shortly. So I'm actually flying back to Pendleton tomorrow for 2 weeks, and then I start terminal leave on the 9th and 10th of August. So
awesome. Well, congratulations on that, man. It's happening quick. You must be flooded, man. What year did you go through Fort Sill?
2001. So it was probably May timeframe. Okay.
I went through in 2008.
So you were a few years ahead of me.
Either way you want to look at it, but awesome. I appreciate you sharing that. Matt, did you have anything?
Yeah, Aubrey, we like to ask our guests, those who have joined the Marine Corps or any like military branch, unique question, because we ask ourselves that and each other's service members a lot of times is, what about the Marine Corps? What drew you to the Marine Corps when you decided to serve?
So it's an interesting story. Like I said, growing up, my mom and dad were separated. They were divorced. So my mom dated a guy. He was a Marine. His name was Terry Kearns. And I've tried to find him, a couple times. Like, I wonder where this guy is at, like if, whatever happened. But she always put the Marines up on a pedestal because he was like probably like the most upstanding person that, she had dated at the time. And, always talked about how nice he was, how respectful, how, my maternal grandfather, they loved him, and always said, the Marine Corps is the branch of the armed forces that, you want to be in because they're the best. It's the hardest to get in, it's most challenging. And the interesting part about that story, if it can get any more interesting, is I actually talked to an Army recruiter and, was talking to him, and he was, giving me the spill, and I walked out, and I guess it was like 2 or 3 days later, and I was like, it's weird because I really don't want to be in the Army, because I know if I was in the Army, I would always wonder and ask myself, I wonder if I could have made it in the Marines. I was like, I can't I can't live like that. I can't do that. I was like, nope. So I go back and I just like beat on the door every day for like, 2 or 3 days. And finally somebody was there. And I remember my recruiter's name. He's a guy named Christopher Fultz. And he was like, yeah, come on in. And like the rest is history. So I was in a debt for over a year though, because I dropped out of high school, got a GED, and the recruiter calls me and was like, hey, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm in Myrtle Beach. I was with my buddy Nick Hall. And he's like, you got a ship next month. I was like, no, dog, I ain't even got my GED yet. Like, he's like, well, you need to get back here so we can get you on track. And he was right. I wasn't handling my business. I wasn't doing what I was supposed to be doing. So I got my GED, and that was in December of 2000. And I walked to the recruiter's office because that's where I was at in my life at the time. I had to walk everywhere I went. And he's like, great, when do you want to leave? I said, yesterday. He's like, how's January 1st? I was like, I'll see you then. So that's it.
Rest is history, huh?
Yeah.
That's kind of similar with me. I didn't really. It was quick for me. As soon as the decision was made, and I called and was like, all right, let's do this. Let's pull the trigger. He called me like a week or so later, and then I was gone. I can respect that. But I never did the DEP program ever. I didn't even know what it was. I didn't know what a general order was.
Yeah, I didn't either. I was in boot camp a month after I saw my recruiter, and I said, I'm ready to rock and roll. And but I love the story about how you wanted to challenge yourself, because I think that's like a universal thing, or I look for that when people say why they joined the Marine Corps, because you would have always asked, like, could I have made it? And that's one thing that Marines never question is their capabilities or their max output of mental, physical, emotional. Like, that's one thing we can smile and say, I know what I'm capable of, because you've tested your highest limits in the Marine Corps. So I think it's awesome.
Well said.
Absolutely.
So when we get into now we're in the Marine Corps, and I want to ask you, because I don't want to get into every rank you've been in for 22 years, but can you tell us about some of your difficult, trying times, kind of in a little bit of each rank, and then your most victorious time, most joyous time in the Marine Corps when you look back?
Yeah, sure. So, Andrew, I think what battery were you in?
Romeo battery, till I died.
Yep.
Yeah, I was Romeo 510.
Yep, I was Sierra 510.
Okay, well,
yeah,
510. We'll give it to you.
It's okay. Yeah. Hey, I'm just saying, like, that's my second deployment to Iraq. I was actually with Sierra 510. So,
what year was that?
That was 2004, 2005.
Okay, all right.
Yep. But yeah, so yeah, I mean, it's all right. We probably still know a lot of the same people, but yeah. So I think some of the challenges, like, obviously when you get to the fleet at first, it's a shock, right? But I do remember this, and this is it sticks with me, because for me, so I'll back up, right? When I came into the Marine Corps, I was 19 years old and already had 2 kids. So I had my first kid when I was 16, and by the time I was 18, I had 2. I dropped out of high school my junior year, and then I started, doing whatever I could do to get by, pay bills, take care of my kids, whatever the case may be. So being a Marine for me was not just, hey, I'm going to go, join the Marine Corps, or, it was like I had a lot at stake. So much so that when I went through Fort Sill, I originally got orders to 29 Palms. Now, my kids were in Virginia still. And my plan was to come back to North Carolina, hopefully get stationed in North Carolina, and then, take care of my kids and make sure that, well, if I go to 29 Palms, that wasn't going to happen. So the master guns that actually worked at Fort Sill was like, he used to mess with everybody. He was probably there when you guys went through too. He was like, hey, you want to get recycled? I'm a PFC, I'm a private. And he used to mess with everybody. And I told him, yeah. I said, yeah, I do. And he's like, what did you just say? I was like, actually, I do want to get recycled. So he calls me in and we get all that fixed out. But I would say probably the first, 2 years was like the pains of anybody else when they first get to the fleet. learning the job. And, you know, I showed up my first day at the gun park, and my section chief, I think he's just retired. He's a master guns Malusian, just retired not too long ago. He's like, so what are you good at? And I told him, I said, I'm an ammo god. And I'm a PFC, right? And I was like, cause I felt like I did real good at school on ammo. Like I liked ammo. He goes, what did you say to me? I was like, oh, this is bad. This is bad. I was like, I'm an ammo god. He's like, cool. And he reaches into, you know, one of the section chief boxes. He hands me an ammo TM. It's like that thick. And a Mark 19 TM. It's like this thick. And a howitzer TM. It's like this thick. And he's like, whenever you're not busting rust or doing a fire mission or getting taught a class, you will have your face in one of these books. So every time we go to the field for like the first 3 field ops, that's what I did. So that learning process was very regimented, very structured. But it was, I would say painful, but it wasn't really painful. At times it was, but I learned a lot. And then I think probably the next phase, you know, my first deployment, 24th MU, it was almost 11 months long. You know, this was right after 9/11 happened. So 2003, right when the invasion kicked off. And so as an NCO, I got promoted on the ship. And not too much longer after that, we actually went into Iraq. And that was an interesting learning experience, you know. It was so I don't get to reflect on it a whole lot nowadays because there's so much going on with my present life, right? But I think it's important to mention because you have a certain feeling your first time you're in combat, right? Or in that type of environment. Everybody's always scared of what's going to happen. And like the moment that I realized that, and I believe this is my personal belief, right? It's not, I'm not saying that everybody has to subscribe to this. Control is an illusion. You don't get to pick when you go or how you go, you just go. Which was further validated throughout my career and throughout my lifetime. So it's called being a fatalist, right? So it is what it is. But that was like once I got over that, it was a big relief, right? Because I'm in the turret, like I'm on top of a gun truck behind a 50 cal. Every deployment I've been on, you can ask anybody, whether it's Iraq, Afghanistan, they'll like, even as a staff sergeant, like I refused to ride in the back of a truck unless I absolutely had to. I would be like, hey, you're getting in the back and I'm on the 240 or I'm on the 50, because I knew machine guns and I felt like I could see. And I felt like, you know, I was in a little bit of control, but that was interesting. And then I would say after my second deployment, I went to Security Forces Regiment at Security Forces Training Company in Chesapeake from 05 to 08. And that's when I first kind of got the bug for instructing. So I think those were learning painful moments too. And then Staff Sergeant by far was my least favorite.
Yeah, I only made it Staff Sergeant, and I can tell you that was it's a hard way to go out in the Marine Corps as a Staff Sergeant. I would have rather went out as a sergeant. I mean, it. Don't get me wrong, it's awesome being a Staff Sergeant, but it's
no, it's not. No, it's not. No.
Hey, Aubrey, I want to just real quick rewind and go back to the feeling you talked about when you were in country, about thinking you have a sense of control, and in reality you really don't have any control. It was unique on how you said that, and I feel like Matt and I could relate to that pretty well.
Yeah.
Is there a level? I don't know if I'm going to ask this properly, but is there a level of that same type of feeling mixed with a lot more anxiety as you approach coming into the civilian world?
It is, but it's very easily forgotten about, right? Because I have, like, in the most strenuous times and stressful times of my life, I always come back to that. Hey, remember, you know, but I think it's more on the lines of, you know, when you leave this earth. And a matter of fact, I was on a phone call with someone tonight who I have not spoken to in years. And out of the blue, he texted me and he was like, hey, man, I'm in a really bad place right now. If you wouldn't mind, shoot me a message. And I was like, wow. I'm talking about like before I came in the Marine Corps is the last time I talked. Actually, after my first deployment was the last time I talked to him in 2003. Oh. And I told him a few months ago, like I sent a comment because he commented on the picture. And I said, you know, you said something to me a long time ago that has pushed me and gotten me a lot of places, out of a lot of places. So the guy's name's Jerry Rigney, and he don't care. I'll say his name. But he told me when I was like, hey, I'm gonna join the Marine Corps. He's like, you ain't gonna make it. He's like, Marine Corps, you ain't for the Marine Corps. And I said, you know, I've been in the Marine Corps 22 years, and I remember that like it was yesterday. So that thought, and then the thought, I can remember exactly what was around me. I was in the turret. We were leaving a radio station that we had taken over in 2003. And I was like, hey, you know, you don't have any control over how you go. Anything can happen right now.
Yeah.
You know, anything, you know, sniper, you know, what a bullet, it just happens. Right. Yeah. And there's nothing I could do. Like, if I didn't know, I was unsuspected. Right. So then I'll look at it transitioning wise, like, you want to be in control of what happens to you, of your future, of what you are qualified to do, your career gaps, all these different things. Yeah. And then I forget that, like, you know what you know, you can do what you can do, and you can only influence so much. I said influence, not control, right?
Yeah.
It's very easy to forget that. So I have to kind of bring myself back into that. And that's my personal belief, right? I don't think everybody should subscribe to that. But so yeah, I definitely think, but it's easy to forget that.
Thanks for sharing that. I didn't mean to, I kind of thought about that and wanted to rewind real quick.
Yeah.
So let's, on a brighter note, all of us, I think, Andrew, I can speak for you. We've all had those moments as Marines, no matter how long your time in the Marine Corps is, where you thought, like, when I went to the recruiter's office, this is what I joined to do. I'm a freaking Marine. Like, this is my most proud moment as a Marine. When was your moment like that, Aubrey?
That's a very good question. There have been two instances where I can say were highlights they were highlight periods, right?
Yeah.
One of which was my Afghanistan deployment with Kilo 310. And I had a phenomenal team. We started off, you know, the deployment was really slow at first. And then it's like once Marja kicked off, it was game on. And it didn't stop. Like, we left Marja and we went up further up north to Fob Eddy, Edinburgh, and we took over for the British up there. And 1-2 came in, and I think we were direct support for them. And it was almost every single day we were firing, you know, immediate suppression, immediate smoke, out of traverse. I mean, you name it. Like, we had 3 guns set up in a triangle formation. And I mean, they were shooting over top of each other. I was running fuses and running rounds and fusing rounds and loading rounds. And, like, guys are in flat Kevlar and PT gear because they just ran down to the gun line from wherever they were at. And I had that moment of clarity. I was like, this is it. This is as good as it gets as an 0811 for me, right? As a platoon sergeant / you know, battery gunny. And we were firing on all. I mean, it was so smooth. Like, those guys were, I've never seen anything like it. And then the second one would be when I was at SOI, when I think when I got to Combat Instructor School, and just before that, recognized as a Combat Instructor of the Year for the Marine Corps in 2013.
Awesome.
That was a very, thank you. That was a very goal-centric point in my life, because I was a 12-year staff sergeant going to SOI, and I said, I'm not going back to the fleet as a staff sergeant. And then I literally went from spot to spot, and I was like, I want that dude's job. I want that person's job. And I was like, I want to go to Combat Instructor School and teach. And I was like, I want to be the chief. And I don't know how I'm going to do it, but that's like, I was so goal focused, but it all came to fruition, and it was a very fulfilling and rewarding time in my career. I learned probably 10 times more than I taught. But those would probably be the 2 points in my career, I would say.
I can relate to one of the ones on the gun line. Now, unfortunately, I wasn't, fortunately and unfortunately, I guess, depending on how you look at it, as an 0811, because it's very rare that nowadays, as an 0811 that has gotten out, to hear 0811 combat stories. We usually get ripped out and put as provisional infantry, but I was on the gun line in Korea, and I was chiefing. I was a corporal section chief, and multi-round mission came down. I was on gun 4, I was on gun 4. 3 was the base piece, and that sergeant on that gun, I came up watching him chiefing, and I like just emulated everything that he did, and I saw it very, very well in my head, and I could act it out and dance it out. And a multi-round mission came down. It's like dusk in the middle of Korea, and next thing you know, all I said, like, the rounds were clear. I said, stand by fire. All my guys were good, and then I heard him hit his last round, stand by fire. And I was like, oh my God. Then you hear the rest of the battery, and I realized I smoked him. And I looked at all my guys, and I was like, good effing job, boys. I was like, that is phenomenal work. And then I heard him come over, and he was like, hey, he's like, yo, Long, is that you chiefing on 4? And I was like, negative, Sergeant. It's like, it's Corporal Turner. And he was just like, oh, hell no. Nah. And he knew me on the gun line when I was a private. And wow. I told everybody, I was like, I want a chief. I'm going to be a chief. I want a chief. Like, I just wanted that. I wanted that title. And I took the safety tees after I went over to our gunny. I said, I'm done. I said, that's the best for me that it was ever going to get in artillery. Is that moment. And as I talk about it, as you talked about yours, I'm sure you can kind of feel it in your skin, and the senses come back, and the smells and the sights. And that was a very, very rewarding time for me, and memorable in the 08 world.
I can tell you that in the non-08 world, I had the fortunate privilege to be the senior enlisted for Special Purpose MAGTF, the LCE. Mm-hmm. And it was me and a guy named Major Keith Rain. And that was the one time we got to build a team ad hoc and lead it, develop it, and train them the way we wanted to. And those of anyone that's watching or listening to this that is from COD 17, from that deployment, they will tell you that it's probably, it was different from any other experience. And it was definitely different for me, because it was things that I knew could work from a leadership and an organizational development perspective.
Right.
And I was lucky enough to have a guy as my boss that was like, yup, let's do it. And we did it, and it was amazing. It was epic. And not to get into too many details, but I think that I would be hard pressed from a mid to higher level leadership. Like, you got to grow an organization from start the way that you wanted to do that, and it was great. So yeah, but I can tell you those are the experiences that you also forget about transitioning, because you're like, oh man, like it's hectic, and then you're like, yeah, but like, remember this stuff? Remember all these times that you, like, all these things that developed you and that like the experiences that you had and that you can look back on and, okay, I remember that stuff.
Yeah.
So, well, speaking about your experiences, if we talked about this the other day, when your career comes to an end, and Andrew and I have talked about our times, looking at regrets, if you have some, what do you think your major regret is, or some regrets looking back on your career?
So I think everybody, and I think we discussed this too, I think anybody that has lived a life worth telling about has regrets. And if they don't, they're not being honest, or they didn't really do much, right?
Right.
I put it a little bit differently when we talked before, but I'll keep it the PG version, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely have regrets. And this one's still kind of fresh, but there was a situation that developed, I'd say probably the last year and a half of my Marine Corps career, where I had to make a decision. I made a decision, and provided something to other senior enlisted leaders, first sergeants and commanders, that I felt was required and needed and had been denied by the chain of command because they didn't want to get embarrassed, right? And, you know, looking at the way in which that was handled, a lot of that was out of my control. But I was pretty much, you know, put up on a stake for that. And I look back on that experience. I did it because I felt like that, you know, you can only keep leaders in the dark so long without expecting them to fail or miss something. And, you know, when they're not being developed, or they're not being mentored, and they're being criticized and made to be a scapegoat, I think that somebody at some point has to do something for them if the other higher level leaders are not. And I took that upon myself. And so I look back on it and think, like, there are a lot of things I could have done differently before that instance that may have prevented that from all happening, and maybe have put me in a different place right now, without getting into too many details, because there's still some people looking into stuff. So, but I you know, I don't feel like what I did was wrong. You know, I think it was something that, you know, if you don't want people to see a command climate survey because you're embarrassed at what everybody has to say, then you should probably, you know, not once but twice, you should, you know, probably look in the mirror. So when I look in the mirror about, you know, that, I don't feel bad about it. I just wish I would have done something about it before that happened, and maybe told some people.
Do you think that this type of thing is kind of molded into the climate and the culture of the Marine Corps in 2022?
So I think, and you know, I think a lot of people have publicly very loudly voiced an issue with accountability at higher levels of leadership, and I think that it goes a lot deeper than that, right? Because there are a lot of people doing a lot of good. You know, we don't do everything good because we want recognition, but there are people that are just they're just toxic. You know, they think that they can treat people because they're Marines or they wear the cloth of our nation a certain kind of way without any kind of deference or respect or regard for that in which they've earned. You can talk to people any kind of way, or you can, you know, blame things on them, or you can lie. You know, and I don't know that represents the Marine Corps as a whole, but I think that there is definitely a lot more attention paid to how people are being treated, how people are being led, and then how that affects the overall, mission and the effectiveness of the Marine Corps as a whole.
I was going to say, what's that do to the quality of the warfighter?
Right. I mean, you have to look at it from a people perspective, right? And we always hear, mission first, Marines always, and that's the thing, that the repeating mantra, right? And because you like to think of it like, no matter what, we're going to accomplish the mission. I think the reality, and this is my opinion, my opinions don't represent the opinions of the Marine Corps in any way, shape, or form. That's my disclaimer. But if you take care of the people, they're going to take care of the mission.
100%.
Because when they have nothing left up here mentally to give, if there's someone other than themselves to consider, because they've been taken care of and they have a sense of pride and a sense of belonging, they're going to find it somewhere to keep pushing and to keep doing more to ensure that the mission gets taken care of. And that COD 17 unit, that deployment, it's a proof of concept, because that was it. Like, we took care of them. They knew we actually genuinely cared about those Marines, and we did. And they kicked it. They rocked it. They did phenomenal, and more than I could ever ask. And a lot of those Marines, they still stay in contact with me. I've ran into them at other units after the fact. And I mean, it not to say that was all my doing or, Keith Rain's doing, but it's definitely because when they go to different units and they go somewhere else, they're like, man, there's a lot that needs work here. Not just from like an organizational processes perspective per se, but from like, how do you take care of people? How do you take care of Marines? How do you train and teach and lead and mentor Marines? Right. It's not a hard concept. Is it challenging? Is it difficult sometimes? Absolutely. Right. But at the end of the day, if you claim to be a servant leader and you're there to serve and take care of the people that you are privileged to lead, then you either own that or you don't. And it comes with a cost. You have to sacrifice. So I think there's definitely there are improvements that can be made, but there have been a lot that are being made as well.
Yeah, I got out at a very interesting time. Aubrey, it was 2018. So I remember when I was selected staff sergeant and I got promoted, social media started changing everything. And it did for good and for bad, because it held people accountable in certain instances. But the way it changed the climate with leadership as far as the officer corps, I think it made them scared to step in the last situations because of their careers and stuff, and dealing with young lieutenants, obviously, as a staff sergeant. I was just interested to see like what your opinion was on social media, how it played a role in all of that.
I think it's been good and bad. It's a double-edged sword, right? Of course, like anything, because you can't keep stuff hidden as well on social media, right? So some of those skeletons don't stay in the closet very long, right? But it's also a good way to advocate and promote a lot of the positive things that are happening. I will say that that relationship from the staff NCO to junior officer is very critical. And I actually had the privilege to go while I was at SEPME, senior enlisted PME. We went and talked to a group of lieutenants and captains at EWS, and I had, I sat and listened to some of my peers say things like, "You don't need to know everything, sir. That's enlisted business." And I waited my turn, and I very tactfully and respectfully disagreed. Because if any relationship, and I don't care what kind of relationship is, if there's not honesty, trust, and transparency, it is doomed for failure.
Yep.
So I think that is, social media has probably assisted and hindered some of those relationships. equally.
So social media, interestingly enough, is how we got connected. On one of the forums, one of the pages, saw you had done some other talk and just kind of reached out, and that's how this relationship is happened. And interestingly enough, so with that being said, what fears do you have? You know, you're coming to the end. You've got literally we're a few days, a couple weeks until you're out. What fears you have about your discharge from active duty and transitioning?
I've been having this conversation a lot with. It's weird because one of the guys that I was on that deployment with for COD 17, we formed a very close relationship, and he's like a second son to me. Rough background, rough upbringing. Family life was hard, and he hit me up last night and was like, "Hey, what do you got going on tomorrow? You want to go get breakfast?" He just wanted to hang out, right? Mm-hmm. And I was telling him, I said, it's weird because you go from a very structured environment to where from Monday to Friday, you have meetings, everything is on a timeline and a structure, like, pros and cons, JPAS, fitness reports, you have a TEEP, a training plan. All these things are planned out. That doesn't mean there aren't variables that come into play here, but then you transition, and this is all with people who are experiencing the same thing as you are, right? Mm-hmm. And then you go into a remote work environment, doing a job you've never done before, with or for people who have no idea what it's like to do what you've done for the past 22 years. They don't speak the same language. Matter of fact, they speak a completely different language with different acronyms, different terms. And I explained to him, I said, it was a long time before I found myself in a place where I didn't know what I was doing, and it's very uncomfortable. And I looked at it, okay, well, because it's a new job, it's a new environment, right? It's okay, right? But it's not okay when you're in it, because you're like, I want you to give me permissions to every program and every system that you guys work off of. I want access to every learning management system. I want references, publications, because tomorrow I'm going to start adding value and I'm going to start getting after it, and I'm going to earn because that's how we're built.
So right.
If I go from being a first sergeant at 7th ESB to, first maintenance battalion, I'll do a left seat, right seat for a couple of days and be like, all right, dog, you need to get your stuff out of my office. I'm like, no disrespect, and it's mutual. It's like, all right, man, I'm out. You got it? You good? Okay. Yep. And it's expected that you are then still adding value, and nothing gets missed because of that. So now it's like, I have no value to add. I listen, I can't even ask questions comfortably, because I'm like, at the end of every 30-minute Zoom meeting, I'm like, I got like 50. I don't even know what y'all just talked about for 30. Like, I don't know what this stuff even means. And I'm not working in a lab. Like, this is doing change management, and people are just talking about all kinds of projects and I'm like,
you're trying to figure out the first acronym in the first sentence, and it's 30 minutes down the line, the meeting's done, and you're like, well, geez, I have no idea.
I'm over here Googling stuff, listening, and I'm like, what is that? Like, but it's too. So I guess to answer your question is, now in the position that I'm in with, Proven Valor Professionals, I'm working with people that have experienced the same thing that I've experienced. However, my job is completely different than the job that I have ever done before. So my fear is sometimes, and we both, everybody has this, is not having the answers or not being up to live up to the expectations of others.
Right.
Because that expectation on yourself is that somebody gives you a position, they tell you what they want you to do, you figure it out, you get 24 to 48 hours if you're lucky, and then you execute, period. And then the pace of life and it's a huge, and it's weird because you can't describe the feeling until you go. And I feel bad. Like, I had like I felt guilt in the past like 2-3 weeks. I'm like, there have been guys that I would work with me, for me, you know, that were junior in rank to me, that transitioned and probably didn't do 4 block. They didn't do hiring our heroes corporate fellowship. They didn't get all these things that I got, and they got a TRS for a week and they went back out into the world. And I'm like, man, this must have really sucked for these guys. And I hit up one of my Marines from my Afghan deployment, Matt Newton, actually. I think he might have commented, but he runs a real estate business with another guy in South Dakota now, and he's very successful. And I told him, I said, man, you know, I almost want to say I'm sorry because I didn't reach out to you and like offer some support or something, because I just figured like there's a system in place for that.
Yeah.
They got that figured out. Like, that's what TRS is for. That's what this is for. And it is great, but there's certain things that just doesn't cover, you know, and that's why stuff like this and what you guys are doing is so important. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the thing that me and Andrew have realized through this whole process is like the stuff that you get, and especially maybe, I don't know, I mean, I was a junior staff NCO, but I was still in the same class as everybody else. I don't know what they're doing differently now, but the knowledge is there, but it's pumped into you like really quickly. And if you have a family, you have kids and you have all this stuff, you have so much going on in your brain, you know what I mean? And then if you're getting out, you start in college, or you're going back home, you're thinking about what am I going to do? You know, it's just, there's a lot there. And then on top of that, like you said, adapting to this mindset of knowing what you're doing, I mean, knowing when you have to change your clothes, knowing when you have to eat, you know, to all of these different things. And then all of a sudden, it's like, hey, let's go get breakfast, or hey, let's do, you know, it's really your brain, like it takes a while to compute that. And I think that's why me and Andrew want to focus on these transitional issues, because I think for some reason, like people think within 6 weeks or 6 months, you should be rolling in your civilian job and you know, patting your family on the back and having corn on the cob and all this, you know, I mean, it's like, it's not that easy. I don't know if you ever change. And I think people need to be okay with that.
I had, I'm telling you, like I'm now looking, like I'm reflecting, because 2 days ago, I had a Navy Master Chief reach out to me because he wants to get in consulting, and he's retiring in 2 years. He wants to get in consulting when he retires, and he's like, I'm interested in volunteer opportunities or any insight you can give me. So I hooked it up. He gave me a call today, and I said, let me tell you something. I wish somebody would have done this to me, or if I had the presence of mind to know what was going to happen 2 years in the future, and said, hey, I'm going through it. Same interest, same, you know, focus of what you want to do when you get out. Here's what you want to look into, and here's some career gaps, and here's some things you're going to, and like, we started this relationship just talking today. I sent him a bunch of notes. I gave him a bunch of things to look at. And I was like, I am like committed and dedicated. Like, he's like, I want to do consulting. And he asked about, you know, hey, do you mind if I sit in on some calls, you know, just so I can see how people are getting coached? And I'm like, God, like, why didn't I think of that? You know? And I'm like, let me see what I can do. Let me, you know, I got to talk to my partner and, you know, talk to Jeff but that guy, I'm going to make it my mission. And I see what so many people told me, like, hey, when you get to this side of the fence, do what you can do to give back. And I'm like, dude, I don't know how you have time, you know, like,
Right.
But now looking at it, like, you talk about putting gas in your tank, like giving you that sense of fulfillment that you missed from helping Marines every day and doing stuff with a mission and a purpose. Like, that put gas in my tank. Like, I was like, yo, like, I'm looking up stuff. I'm like, you know about LinkedIn Premium? Like, you know, you get it free. He's like, I didn't know that. I'm like, yep, here's the link. Boom. I'm like, Coursera, Allegiant Giving, like, you get Coursera classes free. Here's the link. Boom. And I'm just like, man, I'm giving this guy all these resources that it took me months to figure out, you know?
Yeah.
And I felt good doing that. So I think that's when I saw the stuff you guys are doing and the stuff, TSP, the Scuttlebutt podcast does, and they're working to do, like, it's huge, because it sounds like, oh, it's just that whole, like, oh, veteran depression and suicide and mental health line. It's more than that, man. It could be anybody.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, no, I think that, like, it in no way, shape, or form, or me and Andrew, experts, we say that a million times because I want to use it as, like, the biggest disclaimer in the world.
Yeah.
But I mean, we want people to know, like, it's okay to feel like totally disarranged when it comes to your transition. Like, it's okay to feel like that. There's others that are out here that are 2 years into the 3 years, 4 years in transition, and we still feel disarranged. So, that's the whole message. Like, now you got a place to go. Let's talk about this. Let's, we get you back, brother.
Yeah. Sorry, boys. Sorry. Power went out completely.
Oh, the enemy took you out, pal.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. Go ahead, Matt. You're doing a great job.
No, I mean, that was our whole point. It's like, I think veterans just don't speak up a lot of times, and that's the whole problem. Is they won't, like, the only time me and Andrew ever spoke up is when we talked to each other, and that's why we started this. It's like, okay, if we're talking to each other about this, then there's probably a lot of other veterans that are doing the same. Let's get together and make a place where we can all talk to each other about this stuff. And that's how this came. And it's like, dude, it's okay if you don't have the answers. Don't feel stupid about anything. There's a lot of us that are out here trying to figure it out.
I've been fortunate because so a guy, Sean Taylor, he's like a second dad to me. He's a retired Master Guns. So me, Sean Taylor, and Earl Budd, we're in a group text, and Sean Taylor was my company ops chief. Earl Budd was my battalion sergeant major at 7th DSB. The huge mentors. Earl's like my big brother, and so Sean, he retired probably 2 years ago now, and we were still communicating. Like, he was kind of telling me and Earl, like, there's Earl right there, some of his stuff that he was experiencing through transition, right? And I could hear it and I could see it happening because, he's a Master Guns. He's an old crusty gray dude, like, rah, but he's a very intelligent and very personable, and then so I'm like, okay, then he found this other job. He's working this other job and he's doing fine, right? But now I'm starting to, like, see some of these similar things, maybe not the same stuff, but I have him and I can be like, hey, this is what I'm dealing with. He's like, brother, trust me, I've been there. He's like, right. This is some things, like, you got to look at it like this, and, like, it's okay to feel, and you just need somebody to tell you, like, that's normal, because the first thing we do is we go, I'm messed up. Like, what's wrong with me?
Right. Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Like, what's wrong with me? Because you're right. We don't talk about it unless you're like, you got one or two close people. You're like, hey man, you feeling this too? Yeah. Okay. I just want to make sure, Yeah.
Yep. It's normal. Then you don't ever really talk about it again. And it's like, well, yeah, my buddy Matt, it's normal. So I just got to keep moving on because he's moving on. And now I know that, Aubrey's the same. We all got the same thing. We don't have to necessarily, like, vocalize it or be vulnerable to the fact that it could be controlling certain aspects of our life. So nail on the head with that one. Yeah, man. I really do look forward to continuing more of this conversation next week when we dig into a little bit more of your professional aspirations moving forward into the civilian life. And I'd also like to dig into our FRC program for you, maybe live action, kind of get some more raw moments of where we can kind of fit you in to each category. So as our network and things grow here at Disarrange, we're able to actually provide that help for you, and maybe connect you with some people that, could fit where you're kind of missing a puzzle piece, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Yep. I love it. And anything that I can share with, other people, they're going through the process or just trying to figure it out, what you want to be when you grow up post-military. It's, what you want to do, but you don't know what it translates to in the civilian world. So
it's tough. It's a tough translation. Yeah. And a lot of us on here 10 plus years out or under 10 years, but I can tell there's one thing amongst us all right now that the translation still doesn't get any easier. It's just what it is you learn one part of it, and then all of a sudden you have to adapt into a whole other part of it. It's like starting from scratch. Like, damn it, I thought I had my my feet underneath me, and all of a sudden I'm back to having sea legs.
I'll tell you before, and I'll let you guys do your thing, but I just want to give a shout out to my wife, Ashley. She's been extremely supportive of me throughout this process. Like, she can see, like, when I'm starting to do the, take a deep breath, or like I'll look like I'm staring, and she'd be like, what's wrong? And she like recenters me. Okay, what is it? Let's list it out. Okay, what can we do? She helps me like figure stuff out, because everything is kind of chaotic. So it definitely is a lot better with somebody like that in your corner. So I can't thank her enough. She's been huge.
Awesome.
It's awesome. Yep.
Awesome. Matt, do you have any saved rounds for Aubrey?
No, and the thing I think about too is not just the transition part, but we are all different. And the biggest thing about the Marine Corps, you notice when you're there, is there's a lot of critters there, right? A lot of different critters, thinking levels, processing things. So we need to have each other's back no matter what our transition time is. Some people get it right when they get out. Some people, it takes 2 years and they don't know what's going on. They have family issues. The whole point is we need to be here for each other, to support each other and get through this. That's all.
Well said. Well said. Well, listen, Aubrey, it was great, and we look forward to having you back next week on episode 32, and we're going to be introducing Proven Valor Professionals.
That's right. All right. Thanks, fellas.
Thanks. Appreciate it. Have a good night.
Thanks.
Hey, that was great, huh, man?
Yeah, it was awesome. I thought you had given up on the show. I'm like, here we go. Now it's my time. So I was trying to figure out. I was trying to figure out a way to keep you logged off so I could.
You can't listen, pal. You're not changing the password that fast. I was on it.
I was like, okay, let me get
here. She jumped up. She went over. She's like, internet's blinking, lights are on, and she had her phone out. And she's like, he's still going. I'm like, as long as. And I thought you were gonna mess it up, pal. I thought that's. I was like, that's it. Lose our following. It's all
seasoned vet in life, seasoned vet in everywhere, pal. You know what I mean? So, hey, the ball doesn't stop rolling just because Andrew Turner's not on. The show must go on, and that's what happened. But I thought the enemy finally got you, pal. I'm like, that's it. He's good. Someone got him.
Someone got him good. He's over.
No, I appreciate Aubrey being with us and his candidness, and man, his story fits so well into where we are in our story, really. And I just can't wait for the collaboration, and I can't wait for next week to get into everything he's doing too. So.
Yeah, awesome. Well, before we get out of here, bud, I'm gonna throw out one quick buddy check. To a friend of mine, brother from another mother. I don't know if he's listening now. He works nights. We might not get him on the phone, but I wanted to give him a shout out today. I've talked to him in the past, but he's the gentleman that always reaches out on the 22nd of every month. I always wake up to a text or like mid morning, depending on what shift he's on. And he wasn't a veteran, or he isn't a veteran, but his dad was a police officer who passed several years ago. But we used to work together back in the day, so I'm just giving him a shout out. Let's see if he picks up.
It's awesome, man.
Hello, is this Jason?
Yes.
Jason, this is Andrew Turner and Matthew Gardner from Disarrange. How are you, my friend?
Hi, Jason.
Hey, what's going on?
Dude, it's so good to hear your voice, my brother. How the hell are you?
Yeah, man, I'm so happy you're doing well as well, man. I always think about you all the time.
Oh, dude, that's great to hear. Well, I was just pumping your tires over here on the show, talking about how every time I wake up on the 22nd, I know that there's one thing guaranteed when I look at my phone amongst this crazy world is a text from you checking in.
I just always got to make sure, man, because you guys did what you need to do, and I just feel it's need to make sure I check on you every month.
Well, I do appreciate it.
Through some rough times, and you've come through just a strong person through it all, man.
Dude, that's awesome. Well, listen, man, the reason for our call, we really want to hear about you. What's going on? How are you doing?
I just been super busy with work. It's crazy every day just dealing with it, but
Okay.
you know, it's just helping the families is why I do it, you know.
Right, absolutely. How's the wife and little dog?
Everything's been good there. I've been blessed, and it makes me a better person every day. You know, I thank my lucky star. She's literally my sanity.
Dude, that's awesome. That's very, very good to hear, man. Well, listen, I'll let you get back to it, brother. I really appreciate you picking up our call. I appreciate everything.
Of course, man. You guys,
everything you do
I
for the
appreciate
show.
what you guys do, and I always make sure I watch it every week. So you guys keep doing what you're doing. All right.
All right,
Jason,
Jay.
I don't know you too well, brother, but I can tell you with confidence the world is a better place with you in it.
I appreciate that, and I appreciate what you guys are doing every week, man. It's a great cause you guys are trying to help everybody out with. It's awesome.
Awesome.
Thanks, brother.
Thanks, Jay. We'll talk soon, brother. Semper
All right,
Fi.
man. You guys take care. All right.
All right, stay loaded.
Bye.
Yeah, what a great guy, man. I think that is a great way to kind
And
of.
he's your friend?
What's that?
He must not know you very well.
Wait, what did you ask?
I said he's your friend?
Yes, he's my friend, Matthew.
Just teasing.
We
I know you're not in the mood, buddy.
No. Let's talk about it. You don't have good people in my corner.
It's just I don't listen. Let me tell you something. First of all, when he said when he said that, man, yeah, whatever. Hey, why don't you turn your power off again? All right, we'll get it like 5 more viewers as soon as you leave. I'll keep talking.
Listen, man, you really know how to get the show moving, buddy.
You need to get some rest.
Rounds, pal?
No, get some rest. Go to bed. You need rest and fluids.
I appreciate you, buddy. It was another successful week.
Love you.
We got some great things coming from Disarranged, and I really cannot wait to share them with everybody. So take care, everybody. Please come check us out next week, Friday, 8 p.m. Live right here where you're watching us now. Disarranged Talk Show, Andrew and Matthew Gardner.